This is Chapter 1, Section 2 notes. We're going to start out with a little bit of vocabulary. So we're going to start out with the word power. Power is a way to shorten repeated multiplication by using a base and an exponent. So instead of having something like 7 times 7 times 7 times 7, I can shorten that to 7 to the 4th. Okay, so I'm multiplying 7 4 times. It's just a shortened way of writing this long multiplication. The next word is a base. It's the number that gets multiplied. So in this previous example, we were multiplying 7 4 times. So that 7 from the power is what we call the base. Okay, so that's the number that gets multiplied. The other number is an exponent. That tells how many times you multiply the base. So this 4 is the exponent. It said that we had to multiply the 7 4 times. Okay. So next, we're going to work a little bit with powers, bases, and exponents. So these first couple of problems, for number 1, we're going to be simplifying powers. To do this, you're going to use your calculator. Okay. So if I have 10 to the 7th power, I just put 10 to the 7th power in my calculator. If you're not sure how to do that, please ask me. And I would get 10 million, which is a pretty big number. You also can do 10 to any power by, if you count the zeros, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hey, that matches our power here. But that only works with tens. It's kind of a cool base 10 thing. The next one is 0.2 to the 5th. Now, notice the parentheses around there. If there are parentheses, you want to make sure when you're typing it into your calculator that you also have parentheses. So, parentheses 0.2, parentheses to the 5th power is how you type it in. And you'd get 0.00032. That's your answer. So it's pretty easy to use your calculator to calculate these powers. The next step is we're going to simplify numerical expressions, but this time we're not going to use a calculator because we're going to have to remember the order of operations, or PEMDAS. Now, your calculator does not know its order of operations, okay? It just does them in the straight order across. So we have to make sure that we know our order of operations so that we can complete these problems correctly. So the first thing you're going to do is the parentheses, then the exponents, then a multiplication or division. Remember, you go left to right, and then addition and subtraction. Again, you go left to right like you read. So this first problem starts out 5 times 7 minus 4 to the 2nd divided by 2. I don't have any parentheses, but I do have an exponent. So I work with the exponent first. So I'm just going to do 4 to the 2nd. Everything else is going to stay the same. So I have 5 times 7 minus 16, because 4 to the 2nd is 16, divided by 2. The next step is multiplication or division. Again, you go left to right. So I start over here. I have 5 times 7. So I'm going to do that first because it comes first in the problem. So 5 times 7 is 35. So I'll have 35 minus 16 divided by 2. I have two operations left, a minus and a division. Now I have to do the division first because that comes first in my order of operations. So I'm going to cover this up, and 16 divided by 2 will give me 8. So I'll have 35 minus 8. So my final answer will be 27. Okay. The next problem starts out with parentheses, so I know what I'm going to do first. 6 minus 2 to the 3rd divided by 2. Because I have parentheses, that's what I'm going to work on first. 6 minus 2 will give me 4. And then I do the exponent, 4 to the 3rd. 4 to the 3rd is 64. Now I just have one step left. 64 divided by 2 should give me my final answer of 32. Okay, and the last problem that we have here is a division. It's a fraction. So 2 to the 4th minus 1 divided by 5. I do not have any parentheses, so I next go to exponents. Yes, I have an exponent, 2 to the 4th. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is 2 to the 4th, which is 16. So then I have 16 minus 1 divided by 5. Now this is a little bit tricky. I actually have to simplify the top or the bottom of this fraction before I can do the division, which is a little bit out of order. But 16 minus 1 will give me 15. Then 15 divided by 5, well, that's just simplifying a fraction, which will just be 3 over 1, or just 3. Okay, so those can get a little bit tricky. You have to simplify the top and the bottom down to a simplified fraction in order to simplify. Okay. Number 3, evaluating an algebraic expression. So this says, what is the value of the expression for x equaling 5 and y equaling 2? So we're going to plug in 5 wherever we see x and 2 wherever we see y. So this very first problem starts out x to the second plus x minus 12 divided by y to the second. Very first thing I do is I just substitute in, or I plug in. Everywhere I see x, I plug in a 5, and everywhere I see y, I plug in a 2. So I just rewrite it. Now instead of letters, I have numbers. 5 squared plus 5 minus 12 divided by 2 squared. Then I go back to using my order of operations. So I have to do the exponents first. I actually have 2 sets of exponents. I can do them at the same time. So 5 squared, 25. So 25 plus 5 minus 12 divided by 2 squared is 4. Now I look at my operations that I have left. I have addition, subtraction, division. According to my order of operations, I have to do the division before I do addition or subtraction. So I have to do the 12 divided by 4 first. So 12 divided by 4 is 3. So I have 25 plus 5 minus 3. Now again, I go left to right because addition and subtraction are on the same level of order of operations. So 25 plus 5 is 30, and then 30 minus 3 is 27. This next problem has a couple parentheses. So it's in parentheses x times y to the second divided by x times y, but not in parentheses. So again, I'm going to go ahead and write these out with numbers. So I have in parentheses 5 times 2 to the second divided by 5 times 2. Now, because this x and y are together, there's not a multiplication sign in between. They actually are meant to be in parentheses, which is why I put them in parentheses. So then I do the parentheses first. So 5 times 2 is 10. So I have 10 to the second divided by 10, 5 times 2. So then I have 100 divided by 10, which is 10. So that's my final answer, 10. The last problem for this section says, what is an expression for the spending money you have left over after depositing 2/5 of your wages in savings? Evaluate the expression for weekly wages of $40, $50, $75, and $100. So I'm going to first need an equation. So this should be 2/5 times your wages. So I abbreviated wages as W. Okay, so then I just plug in these numbers for the W. So in your calculator, I'll have you do 2/5 times 40, then 2/5 times 50, 2/5 times 75, and 2/5 times 100. If you do not know how to put fractions in your calculator or you're not sure how to type this in using your calculator, please just let me know. You can also change this to a decimal and then do the multiplication. Okay?